Okay, thank you for staying with us. Now let's go straight into what we have on our local dailies. Let me start with the front page of the Standard. And on the front page of the Standard, the newspaper reads, Reforms, Diploma Shocker to Universities. Reforms, Diploma Shocker to Universities. In new proposals to be presented to the President later this week, experts say that universities should not offer diploma and certificate courses, a move that will make many institutions drop facilities, lecturers and students. In new proposal to be presented to the President later this week, experts say that universities should not offer diploma and certificate courses, a move that will make many institutions drop facilities, lecturers and students. That is in the new proposal. I'll give you more details shortly. That story actually is fleshed out there for you on page 6 of the Standard newspaper. Raila in new mass action threat if levies are raised. He spoke yesterday, warning that if the new tax bill passes as is, then there will be demonstrations. But CS Interior, Kithure Kindiki, warns that there will be no more demonstrations in the country. Life has to go on. That story is on the front page of the Star newspaper. I'll give you that shortly. President William Ruto was in Djibouti. Ruto cedes ground, moves to amend tax proposal. That is what we have here on the front page as well. And still on the front page, churches caught up in land grabbing scandals. Where will we hide our heads? Churches caught up in land grabbing scandals. That is on page 12 and 13 of the Standard newspaper. Activists fear killer police are back with vengeance. Haki Africa complaining and alleging that the killer group, the killer squad, is back. Haki Africa raises concerns over forced disappearance of civilians. According to the lobby group Yusuf Gassana, a Rwandese is the latest victim of abduction, and they're now calling for his whereabouts and the police to give more details. 3 men grabbed him from his house, tied his hands, and dragged him to a waiting car. And now Haki Africa is calling for police to hasten the investigations. Reprieve for Sudi as court declines to issue arrest warrant. That is after the Environment and Lands Court in Eldoret declined to issue orders for the arrest of Kapseret MP Oscar Sudi over land tussle with administrators of Kihor Arab Talai Estate, that is in Uasin Gishu County. Again, Raila warns of mass protest if finance bill sails through. Raila warns of protest if finance bill sails through, says that non-stop anti-government demos may resume on July 3rd if finance bill is passed by Parliament. Azimio leaders also blamed Kenya Kwanza for collapse of bipartisan talks. As always, at this particular point, this is the point that I bring in my guest, and let me bring in Daniel Orogo to chime in on this one and get to hear his voice. Warm up. Daniel, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
My first question, how is Kenya doing?
Well, I think it's a mixed reaction as to where we are. First is a country that is grappling. It's also part of the global communities that are grappling with the effects of economic downturn and recovery to post-COVID. And the issues that are coming out of regimic change, adjustment of policies here and there. So, so far, things are not okay. If you ask the local, the Mamamboga and the hustlers, as was predicted, there's no reprieve. Things are tough on people. Yeah. And to be honest, I think the country needs a sober conversation on the state of the nation with regards to our leadership, with regards to our economic performance, and also with regards to the global policies in the background of economic crisis. So I think that is where we are. The state of the nation is at its weakest. It has never been this way before. Yes.
All right. Gerald, Minishi, joining me on set for the first time. Welcome to Good Morning Kenya.
Thank you so much.
Let me get your voice on this, and how is Kenya doing from your own assessment?
Currently, as a country, we are experiencing political and economic pressures And this is evident, especially the high cost of living and different conflictual relations between different political parties. Yeah, so like, I feel like we need to have this conversation around these issues.
Okay, I'll come back to you very shortly. We'll have to fix something on the sound there. Apologies for that. All right, we'll be right back with Gerald. Let me continue with the Daily Nation, with the Standard. MPs to amend disputed finance bill clauses. That is according to Parliamentary Committee on Finance Chair Kuria Kimani, who says that most likely there will be some amendments. The Parliamentary Committee says that views and petitions from the public have been addressed. They've had their time to do their report, and now, however, they did not divulge which clauses had been amended. That is according to them. And now the committee led by Molo Member of Parliament Kuria Kimani agreed to amend some of the controversial clauses after a 5-day retreat in Naivasha. Though it did not divulge which clauses had been amended, the committee said that all views and petitions from members of the public had been addressed. We'll be waiting to see, because it's going to be a heavy week in Parliament this week once that bill is presented to the House for the second reading. In the last couple of weeks, the issue of 3% housing levy and 16% value-added tax on petroleum products have dominated talks, with the opposition calling for the bill to be withdrawn. That is, wait and see how that is going to be, which clauses have been amended and taken into consideration by the committee. And now, as you say, there is this issue of MCS. And now, speaking to the chair yesterday, a total of 19 county assemblies across the country have so far suspended their operations indefinitely. That is according to the chair, who actually told me that 19 county assemblies have so far suspended their operations, and Vihiga County Assembly is the latest to halt services over salary dispute. So we had that discussion here around 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they said that they need their issues addressed. Talking to the SRC, then they needed some of their remunerations taken care of, but that has not been forthcoming. Experts now want universities to drop certificate and diploma courses. I really don't know how this is going to happen, but according to the expert, and of course this report is going to be handed over to the president later this week, how is it going to be? Gerald, before you get into that, before you fixed your microphone, I ask a question: how is Kenya situation right now, state of the country?
Yeah, we are in a very bad shape economically and politically, especially with the rising political and economic pressures. This is not right, because if you look at the incumbent government, it had laid some promises for the common mwananchi, for Kenyans. Yet some Kenyans right now, they feel like they are cheated, they feel like they have been duped, and they feel also that they are not included in these discussions around policies and taxes. So this finance bill that is going to be passed is going to rather take a large toll, especially on those people of lower income levels. So it's going to be an interesting conversation. Yeah.
And of course, when you look at MPs amending the finance bill, Daniel, although they'll have to divulge which clauses they have taken into consideration, but what do you make of this? I mean, does it really mean that the Kenyans' voices have been heard in terms of public participation, and they have to be captured in the report?
Of course, that is the essence of public participation. And we are at a state where all the public servants and most of people think that public participation is a matter of formality. Let me remind you that public participation is ingrained in Article 10 of the Constitution as one of the national values of principles of good governance. It is in the Constitution. So in that sense, it means that it should be meaningful, and it should have an outcome that is desired. Now, you've seen there is tons of petitions and input that were made by the citizens from various factions who approached the committee led by Kimani Kuria to give their opinions as so far as the amendments that they foresee in the finance bill. Victor, I think it's also important to underscore the fact that people and most Kenyans have been hoodwinked to think that, you know, there are only 3 contentious issues in the finance bill. They talk about VAT, they talk about housing levy fund, and they talk about some digital tax. You understand?
Yes.
If you read that, you know, and I've carefully looked at that bill, you find that there are almost 12 avenues where the government would want to tax Kenyans, including you disputing that tax are levied to you irregularly, Victor. That is how it can go. By the moment you just even dispute that KRA has, you know, inflated some cost on you that you need to pay, before the hearing, you need to deposit a dispute fee. You know, these are some of the things probably Kenyans have not been treated to understand with the issues of the finance bill. But as you may, you know, you've pointed out, I think the retreat in Naivasha is able to come up with a win-win situation. Because at the end of the day, one of the things that we can't also sit and dispute and also mislead Kenyans, that we cannot reject this bill in totality. I think it's also important to also tell the opposition that it is impossible.
Yeah.
The government tax the citizens to run the government and to give the public services to deliver. So any factions or any person telling you that these bills need to be rejected in totality, I think is also pushing Kenyans so that, you know, we put a government in a situation where we want to run a crisis as a country. And that is not really tenable, that is not really realistic. So for me, I think one of the conversations that we should be having is what is the win-win situation in this country with regards to the Finance Bill 2023. And lastly, I think it's important for us, and this is what we said always in the panel, Victor, that some of these conversations are too costly to leave to political class. The moment you leave them to political class, then we are having a situation where politicians are going to rub shoulders with the most important thing that are affecting the country, like paying taxes and service delivery. It is expensive for Kenyans to leave this issue to only politicians. We should be hearing to the expert that give their opinion. The Kenyan Manufacturers Association gave their opinion. You know, all these experts, all these taxpayers association, all these trade unions, all these civic aviation industries that has given their opinion, media owners association, do we listen to them? I think it's important for us as a country to know who we are listening to and which voices are critical that we give a priority to.
Very well. Okay. Very quickly, on to the Star newspaper here. On the front page of the Star newspaper, big names line up to replace Haji as DPP. Big names line up to replace Haji as DPP. Insiders said to be keen on their own being picked instead of newcomer. Insiders said that to be keen on one of their own being picked instead of newcomer. The Star has that story there fleshed out there for you on page 4 and page 5. And on the front page, this Sauti Sol, good to mention that the curtain raised for the Boys to Men with thrilling performance over the weekend. I did not attend. I did not. But from the quarters, I know it was okay. Any song by Boys to Men? Gerald, Orogo, if you can remember. I know you were born in the 70s or something. Okay, let's come back home. But
I mean, of course, you saw the disappointments that, you know, Kenyans really tried to attach the meaning of, you know, Boys to Men visiting. And you saw the advertisement that were made, Victor.
Yeah.
and VVIP and VIP payment that are here. But you see, look, how do we really, to use the better little term of it, we glorify a lot of, you know.
But all of us ought to have attended, by the way. Gerald, if you've attended,
we glorify a lot of these entertainment things, entertainment from foreigners. We are having our own local industry.
Yeah.
And by the way, we shouldn't be having our local, you know, artists curtain raising. Why? Why should be always that they have to be curtain raising?
Who did you expect?
Anyway, I'm a fan of reggae music.
Beyonce. Okay. All right. Very quickly, let's head to what there. The story of big names being lined up to replace Haji says that Ruto is in a fix as some of his close confidants are salivating for the job. Yusuf Haji, was floated, but he's faced a bit of some rejection and objection from other quarters. Homicide team joins Brazil missionary murder probe. Brazilian missionaries murder probe. His body was found on June 8th at about 1 a.m. by locals who called police. No more ARV pills. Experience of patient on long-acting jab. But patients fear that this will happen to them when the trial ends next year. We have to be very careful. MPs to table amended finance bill document after public input, and the Parliamentary Committee on Finance has made some amendments, of course, to the controversial finance bill of 2023, led by Kimani MP. Kimani Kuria said that they'll present that report to the House for the necessary action. All right, let's take a break, and when we come back, we're still going to continue with what's on the Daily Nation and slightly inside the Star newspaper. Thereafter, we'll continue with our discussion on iron politics. Stay with us. All right, let's come back to what we have on the Star newspaper. I was giving you a quick rundown on what we have on the Star here. Very quickly onto the inner pages. Top lawyers line up to replace Haji as DPP. We have got top lawyers here. One of them is Anna Madi. We have got Dorcas Oduor, Kioko Kilokumi. We have got Katwa Kigen, Nelson Harvey, and Taib Ali Taib. These are the top lawyers who are actually lining up to replace Haji as DPP. Let me give you their brief profile. Kioko Kilokumi is a senior counsel. Dorcas Oduor, Secretary of Public Prosecutions. Katwa Kigen is a veteran lawyer. We all know Katwa Kigen. For those people who can remember him, we all know Katwa Kigen during the ICC trials. Taib Ali Taib is also a veteran lawyer. He's appeared in so many cases. Ann Amadi is the chief registrar, the current chief registrar of the judiciary. Victor Mule, deputy director, office of the director of public prosecution. Emily Kamau, deputy director, ODPP. Rashid Kator, who is also deputy director, ODPP. Jacinta Nyamosi, deputy director, ODPP. Grace Murungi, deputy director, ODPP. And Alois Kemo, deputy director, ODPP. We have got how many deputy directors? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, all battling to replace their boss. It's a tough job. So if you ask me, Gerald, for those people who are lining up to get the position of Haji, Gerald, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like personally I'm rooting for Nelson Harvey. I think Nelson Harvey, he has been a president of the Law Society of Kenya, and I think that his experience is something that we cannot underestimate. Although all candidates there, I can see they have a very good profile, and I also think in matters to do with the integrity, Harvey is still a candidate that we can look upon.
Yeah. And if you look at all these people, Daniel, these are accomplished lawyers and senior counsels in the profession. I mean, Kioko Kilokumi, Dorcas, Anamadi, Kigen, Harvey, Taib. These are men and women who are up to the task.
Yeah, I mean, the task of public prosecution, like you said, is it's a balance of prosecution, but also protecting human rights. So there needs to be a mix of the qualities and the qualifications of one service of director of public prosecution. You understand that in the list, the people that you've listed, some of them are still struggling with court cases as we speak. You understand? Anna Madi's case, is within the hearing of the court about the gold, whatever golds come. All these, most of these have either one or two issues. Kioko Kilokumi, an accomplished profile. And I think if you could remember the Kibaki era, there was a time that Kibaki had proposed Kioko Kilikumi has won either, I think, the Director of Public Prosecution or maybe some position in this country, in Kibaki regime, if you can remember by that time. So I think, one, my issue is that beyond accomplishment, there needs to be a serious track record of safeguarding human rights. There needs to also be a track record of, one who is independent in mind. And because the office really needs to be devoid of, politicians calling the shots. And, the shots being called, from different offices to, prosecute and drop these cases here and there. Cases that are fronted for prosecution to the direct office of the Director of Public Prosecution. So I think for me, that sums it up. You might have qualifications, you might have the experience, but again, as a country, we really need also to vet you with regards to the qualities of leadership and integrity chapter, because then you should be, sparkling. And our ideal is that the one who holds this office should prosecute without being reminded that they have a case, that could begin to derail their efforts in terms of pushing forward to prosecution. Why? The court cases of corruption in the backlog that we are having in this country, that needs to be expedient by someone who is qualified and have opportunity to do that.
Okay. Very quickly, let me take you through the front page of the Daily Nation. Finally, on the front page of the Daily Nation, what do we have here? Ruto following in Uhuru's footsteps. That is on the front page of the Daily Nation. Ruto following in Uhuru's footsteps. Why? The same script. He vowed to chart his own path during the campaigns, but after just 9 months in office, the actions and policies of President William Ruto's administration have so far done little to differentiate it from that of his predecessor, Uhuru Kenyatta. At a glance, failure to meet two-thirds gender rule, housing fund, plans to lease out ports, chronism in state appointments, CAS appointments, entrenching state capture of independent institutions, use of political numerical advantage to bulldoze legislators or legislations or proposals, lowering opposition MPs to government side, and finally, competence-based curriculum. What's the take on this, Gerald?
You are right. I agree with you, Victor, that Ruto, in one way or the other, he has tried to follow the footsteps of former President Uhuru Kenyatta. And may I remind you also that Kenya is a closed political system. Since we are a closed political system, there are no checks and balances, there is no transparency, and the politics of the belly. So where we find it's like the leaders, we have nepotism and leaders scrambling for the national cake for their own personal aggrandizement. So if you look at, from the time Ruto ascended into power up to now, you will realize that there are some policies which were almost in tandem with the former President Uhuru Kenyatta. Number one, that's what I have raised, the issue about two-thirds gender rule. It is an issue that it has not been addressed as such. It's something that is still eating up, we have not stepped up to the task. Number two, the issue about appointments. This is an issue I think, I thought when Ruto was campaigning and giving his manifesto to the common wananchi, I felt like that he was serious about appointments. Maybe he will diversify his appointments, but unfortunately it's the same pattern. So the political pedigree that has hunted us, since our independence is the same pattern that we are witnessing right now, and it's very sad. So it's even, and I think this is also one among the issues that is demoralizing most Kenyans, because if you look at even the finance bill, but it is not about the finance bill per se. It is about the accountability part of it. Can we trust this government? So there's the decline in trust. In that issue. Thank you.
Ruto following footsteps, of course, scrapping off the previous administration's, blueprint and the track record is always not easy. When you look at even President Uhuru Kenyatta, he picked from where President Mwai Kibaki left. When you look at what the late Moi had, President Mwai Kibaki picked a few pieces and completed. It's always in area administration that where your predecessor left, you pick and run with that. Actually, it's a silent program that a majority of Kenyans do not even understand, that each and every administration we have to follow. We have got Vision 2030, so to speak. So whatever is captured in Vision 2030, the governments and administrations will always pick and run with them. So President William Ruto picking what Uhuru left is not a shock anymore.
I think I have a...
And there's actually no problem with it, because like you've mentioned, blueprints and policies, and this is why before any regime get into power, there's always time for transition. You remember you know, from handing over from one regime to another. And within the transition, then there is those kind of conversation about the policies to further. And like you said, some of these policies are ingrained in living documents. You've mentioned the Vision 2030, which of course tried to revise our economical policy from sessional paper number 10. That was done way long before. Tomboy and Mwai Kibaki did that. And within a number of time, the government tried to change and adjust, and that we had our Vision 2030. Of course, being the contemporary blueprint that you know, all economic policies are trying to be anchored in. So I see there is really no really serious concern. But only the issue comes in now when, you know, some of these you know, policies are either misinterpreted or they're being, you know, overdone away with to communicate, you know, a political standpoint, a political grandstanding. There is no any other way. Even if we would have elected, you know, the other Azimio government, we wouldn't have expected anything to change. And in fact, most of these, you know, policies could have been furthered. The difficulty of getting into regime, like you said, is 9 months since, you know, the government, you know, was sworn in. It's a very short time, you know, for Kenyans to think that some of these policies are going to be cut short, you know, just done away with. And I want to give you an example and what is really grappling this country. You remember the subsidies in maize flour, and when the regime got in, they did away with it. You understand? Right now, Kenyans are now thinking, and there is a very gap. People are asking why, what is happening with the maize subsidies? Because the regime got into power and they decided, you know, just to do away with it. No process of consultation, no process of, you know, trying to consult experts on what would be the effects of us doing away with this, and so a number of policies. So I think for me, there is no really a big issue to it, except when it's taken to extreme and it's eating into, you know, the delivery of services and the performance of the government. So we didn't expect so much changes on these.
All right.
You know.
All right. So let me continue with what we have. There is a scare that there is a return of COVID-19. God, we don't need to get back there. We really don't need to go back there. Return of COVID-19. Kenyans are to be careful as hospitals report more COVID-19 cases. I'll give you more details shortly. But as it is, there is a scare that there's a return of COVID-19. In fact, just before I get there, let me just get you the details. It's fleshed out here. On page 10, hospitals struggle to provide oxygen as COVID-19 cases rise. In Beijing, China, the number of new coronavirus infections has quadrupled in 4 weeks. Now, the country could be experiencing a silent surge in the number of patients requiring oxygen as the country faces a new wave of COVID-19. In the recent past, a number of Kenyans have tested positive for the virus, with many experiencing severe symptoms that warrant oxygen therapy to enable them to breathe. Now, last week, of course, the name has been withheld. Angela went to one of the country's leading private hospitals after experiencing breathing difficulties. On arrival, she was told that all that machines were busy and that the number of Kenyans needing oxygen was quite increasing. And it's reported that the COVID-19 is bad. Now, according to one nurse who was quoted, said that it's no lie. We are seeing about 4 patients a day coming in needing oxygen. We should be worried. I covered COVID-19 pandemic. I remember the first week of COVID-19, which was when it was first reported here. I was sent to Mbagathi Isolation Center, the quarantine center, and the picture is still fresh in my eyes. The picture is still there. People who arrived from Beijing, China, from Germany, we all remember, they were taken into isolation. And for you to get dressed in those PPEs and seeing someone struggle to breathe, COVID-19 was a scare to all of us. How I survived it, I have no idea. Believe you me, how I survived that thing, I have no idea. But
and you see, just like you put it, the picture might be gross. Let me tell you, the county services preparedness to handle any crisis, medical crisis. The doctors are already threatening to lower their tools. Okay? You understand, in the counties?
yeah,
You've alluded to, as you're going through, that the county assemblies, 19 of them, are on a go-slow. That means that any financial conversations or bills cannot be passed in the county assemblies.
Yes.
And therefore, we are looking at a situation when the revenue that should be going to the counties have been delayed. The nurses, the servants and public servants in the counties have issued and have gone to a go-slow. And then we are here still talking about COVID-19, a threat that might come. You understand?
It is a global threat.
It is a global threat.
Yeah.
And you see, like you said, in Kenya is an open, it's a transition zone. This country is a transition zone. Anyone committing to different parts of Africa gets through JKIA here to major transition and load shedding on all over in each and every country. So we really need to look at this issue critically and issue an alert, not just only to speak about it, but our Ministry of Health should be on a standby to issue an alert in preparedness, especially now when it gets to counties. That is my worry.
The question is, Gerald, because what is talked about, the preparedness. I mean, when you look at even the national government, the country itself, we were caught unawares because it was a new phenomena that not even the health sector was prepared for such an event. But thank goodness, Kenyans, we managed somehow. And much as Africa was expected to report the highest number of deaths in the world, that did not happen. Bring it back home. Are we ready? If at all we have any right now.
Yeah, I think the $1 million question that we should ask is what lessons have we learned?
Even in the past.
Yeah, that's very important, because if we are going to suffer the same challenges that we faced at the beginning, then I think that we have not learned anything. We have not adopted to the COVID-19 and emergency response preparedness. And I think this is very important. We need to build resilient structures to curb with the future pandemics and crises. So I think our country, this is also a test to our economic models and our government administration on how they can handle future crisis when it comes here. So I think this wave, this new wave should not come to us as a surprise, because we knew that such pandemics can happen, especially when we were hit by COVID-19. Remember, COVID-19, it tore apart the roots of economic progress. So we should have learned from that and implemented further mechanisms that are robust.
And I agreed, and the lessons that Gerald have put it. But also it brings into the issues of we are producing, doctors and medics. We are pioneering as a country. We're even pioneering, the test of vaccines. You understand? Oxford, AstraZeneca, and all these vaccines were pioneered in this country. They were tested here. And so, even as much as we are into this asking, then what next as a country and as Kenyans strategically positioned, but then what is our institutions of research, KEMRI, and the rest? Why haven't we, looked into What have we produced with regards to COVID-19? With other countries have produced, vaccines. South Africa has done that, UK have done that, Americans have done that, but they are pioneered in this country. Do we have medics who are able right now? And I agree with what Gerald has said. One of the lessons, apart from the economic effects and the global effects that it has, are we still got into surprise that our medical fraternity has not really pioneered to know which variant are we going to deal with it, because it's another variant, this COVID-19. It's not the same one. It keeps on mutating. Yeah. Which one are we going to deal with as a country? And Kenyans, its positions and the facilities, universities that are producing, doctors, what is our institutions of research prepared with, all aspects of preparedness, if at all, that, it is true that we are having a new wave in the variant of COVID-19. Yeah. It has to bring to for a number of things as a country.
Exactly. And even the preparedness, from the way you put it, from our government, the county government, do we have oxygen plants in our hospitals? Do we have preparedness in terms of the PPEs? Right now, chemistry is still embroiled in the back and forth between the government and the officers there. But down to the common mwananchi, somebody would argue that the common mwananchi somehow got comfortable with the situation and we forgot about it. Because when you ask somebody will tell you, it was a tough time. So when COVID-19 was declared not a threat globally by WHO, Kenyans, as usual, we went back to our normal survival. But as you put it, there was a sense of some variant mutating somewhere, silently mutating within our communities.
Yes.
So what should you do, Gerald?
Yeah, there's a sense of urgency. First of all, if I can pick something positive about the Finance Bill 2023, I think they've done away with the vaccine. I think vaccine tax on a vaccine.
Yes.
So that will prompt, the medics to produce vaccine freely. So I think number one, we need to increase research, to fund the research institutions. Number two, we need to embrace, or rather to Kenya, from the top political leadership, they need to carry out civic education on these matters to do with COVID-19, and not just COVID-19. Every other, there's tuberculosis, malaria, there are other diseases which are concerned to us. Yeah, so I think education is key, and the research is also fundamental.
Yeah. All right. So, gentlemen, let's all agree that you need to be very careful. Even you out there, you need to be very careful. At the end of the day, it's about, we don't need to go back where every Kenyan would, we remember that question, fellow Kenyans. It was a familiar line. And any time we saw former president calling for a press conference, either in State House or Arambe House, we all had an extension of curfew, lockdowns, and cessations, and all that. It was not an easy thing for Kenyans for close to 3 years.
Of course, and you see also matters of food security, Victor. COVID-19 hit so much also for us to understand that, issues of producing food that builds human immunity, in the villages as well. Because we understand that the issue of having a balanced diet, because now you want us to narrow it down to understand where we are coming from in the villages. Matters of having nutritious food that builds your immune system is equally very important. And I think these are some of the issues we really need to have a sober debate about. Because, like you said, people seem to be used to the COVID-19. The government said that you can now walk without masks, and you can now adapt to situation. But then we forgot, what does this pandemic always hit at? That we should always be looking, even as we are dealing with, the resilience, as we are building the resilience. But then it was expected that even after this one, it is a virus that keeps mutating. It will come in a different form. It is here with us. Still, this virus, what we've just done is to build our immunity. But if the researchers and the medics can tell you, if a stubborn virus as this one, if people build the resilience and immunity around, it also coils and begin to mutate again. The stubborn as it is. So I think let's get ready and know that COVID-19 is still with us. It's not that we only build an immunity, but of course it will come back in different way.
All we need to do is to be very careful. So gentlemen, let's talk about the state of the nation today on our eye on politics. This week is going to be so heavy. Let me start with you, Gerald. This week is going to be so heavy, more so for parliamentarians. They are, so to speak, in a straitjacket between a rock and a hard place. Kenyans are on this end. The electorates are watching at their members of parliament, whichever way they're going to vote. The executive also waiting for parliament to approve the budget, the bill 2023. We all know that we have to get there because the government must get the budget to run the affairs of the country. So as we speak right now, what do you really think is running through the minds of Kenyans, the president, but most importantly, the legislators?
Number one, I think Kenyans, most Kenyans are frustrated. Frustrated because, remember earlier when you were talking about the finance bill, you know, this finance bill, we are not, it was not, the Pandora box of the finance bill was not opened up to the public. That's why my colleague here say that there's more into the finance bill than just housing, you know, housing levy and the VAT on petroleum. So most Kenyans, they don't have that knowledge. I don't know if I can say civic education, but they are not aware of the contents, the main contents, the key ingredients of the finance bill 2023. And most of them feel like, you know, the government is using this tool to weaponize it, you know, or rather to use it as a weapon to frustrate, especially those people from lower middle class level. So, number one, I think parliamentarians are under pressure. They're under pressure because, number one, you know, the people are the one who elected them to power. Yeah. So they are caught into contrast between either to respect the executive or to bow to the pressure of the common man who are crying, you know, high cost of absolutely high cost of living, etc. But unfortunately, you know, the sad part of it, I think, is that this bill may likely pass. It may pass. Yeah, it might pass because these politicians, we know them. They will prioritize the government, the executive, and not the common man. Yeah. Okay.
Let's take a break. And when we come back, I'm still going to get into that discussion because we have been talking about the Finance Bill 2023. There are good things about it because at the end of the day, a budget has to be read. Either way, a budget has to be read. Only that certain clauses need to be amended. You know, the government might have certain proposals, but because of the public participation, which Kenya's actually embraced in the last 2-3 weeks, is something that I'm so sure even the government did not expect. We have got entities who presented their memoranda in their thousands, 1,000 plus, and they had their voices heard. We had the common mwananchi, call them the common quote unquote, who also presented their views. So I'd like to talk about the issue of public participation. Have we become of age as Kenyans? Are we getting into our space where is provided for by the Constitution? Are we now starting to distinguish between the four arms of the three arms of government? And now there is another government we are forgetting, the mwananchi. I call it the government.
Yes, it's the main bedrock of
of all these three. Let's talk about all that when we come back after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us. Okay, so before we took a break, the issue of public participation has taken a center stage, completely enshrined in our Constitution. Kenyans really embraced it in the last 2 weeks during the submissions of memoranda, the public participation in the formation of this finance bill. So my question is, before we took a break, gentlemen, have we become of age? Are we starting to embrace? Have we started to understand our role as citizens? Let me call ourselves as the fourth arm of government. I don't know in which order, because we have got executive, legislature, and the judiciary. I don't know where this side, where we belong as common mwananchi. In whichever order, let me call it now the fourth arm of government at the end of the day, because power belongs to the people.
And you see, and you've captured it very, very well, if you want to see, and in your order of arrangement, then I would advise that you be guided by the Constitution. The Constitution, in a first preamble, give that preeminence. You know, there are so many 16 chapters in the Constitution. But Article 1, Chapter 1, mentions the people. All sovereign power is invested in the people of Kenya and shall be exercised directly and indirectly. But directly, Kenyans can exercise power through protest and you know and petitions like the ones that had been put forward to the committee on finance committee that was hearing directly.
Yes,
Kenyans going there directly to face the leaders, or indirectly through the elected members of parliament. Victor, like we were talking about before we came back to it, I say that the power that we have as citizens of Republic is that we haven't mastered, we haven't give a lot of importance to the power that we have. Why do I say so? I would draw your attention back just in our neighbors. You saw what happened in Tunisia. By just a pinch of, feeling of economic pinch and a young man burning himself in paraffin, in frustration of, missing jobs because of unemployment, sets the whole country to eject a whole regime out of power.
And because there's that power in the hands of one monarchy, right?
Yes. We are witnessing issues in Senegal when, the government meddled in opposition. And you've seen that just by the arrest of opposition leader Osman Sonko has sent citizens to go back to the prison to release the opposition leader themselves.
Yes.
1 million. And they march and say, you kill 1 million. The people's power. And I'm not saying this to incite. I am just saying this that we haven't mastered the power that we have. When each and every August, the second week of August, we wake up and line ourselves to go vote and put that check in trust for the people that we elect, hoping that some of the issues and the pain we feel, they are able to articulate it the way we could. That is the essence of indirect representation.
You have your faith, you have your hopes and aspiration.
I am checking it into you. Exactly. I am cashing it into you.
Right.
That the same way I would sit here to articulate my problems is the same way you would go to the National Assembly and the Senate or wherever you will be nominated to articulate it the way I'm articulating. That is the power that we are giving to you. So when you fail, when you boycott, and when you act into contradiction of that power, then that is now you breach the trust that the citizens have given you. And let me bring you back to what you've asked, because this is where we give a priority what importance it is. The citizens of Kenya lined up to elect the government of the day. And the government, I'm not only calling for the executive. You've mentioned the 3 arms of government that we have. People forget the 3 arms of government we have, including the 4th. In fact, the 5th one, you are talking about the people's power. The 4th one and the 5th one is in the county governments. That we always forget. Whatever we mention about government, we always just think that is the national government.
Yes.
We have 47 devolved units fully facilitated and acting governments of the day, including where you expedite your issues and legislate in the 47 county assemblies. Where you have your people and your members of county assembly that you can wake up in the morning and knock their doors and say, guys, we feel frustrated because a bridge here has fallen and this is happening there, somebody has been killed here, and go and articulate the same issue the way I'm articulating. So the failure, I was just bringing this to tell you the failure. Kenyans ought to have mastered, and by now, and I'm happy when you reported that over 1,000 and tens of petitions and memoranda had been signed. The foolish thing the government of the day can do is to assume that those citizens, acted out of ignorance and went ahead and put their petitions and their memorandums and ignore. I'll tell you, that would be one of the foolish actions that the government of the day can do. And then you asked what next as I conclude. We are hoping that with the experts, with the views of Kenyans, both in social media, and I'm hoping that the National Social Intelligence Unit also reads. In the court of public opinion, there are opinions of Kenyans. Kenyans have read so much and have said, look here, this government of the day, we feel overtaxed. We feel overburdened. We are recovering from post-COVID. We are recovering from global economic recession. And we feel the way you overtax and more taxes is going to load up on us. That our pockets are going to run dry. That is what the Kenyan citizens are saying to this government. And to opposition, Kenya's government has said that you are a clueless opposition who've not mastered the art of articulating the issues of Kenyans.
Where's the alternative?
You understand?
Exactly.
So this is where Kenyans are now faced. And by the way, I'm saying that if you see Kenyans going to the street, it will not because the opposition have called it to go to the street. It will be because of Kenyans have felt that there needs to be a mobilization, an alternative mobilization. And that's why I said, lo and behold, we are having, unfortunately, that is the oppositions that are rallying people to go to the street. Why could civil society do that? Why would religious institutions do that? Why would youth movements do that? So it is our unfortunate that us being rallied to go to the streets and to petition, which is in the constitution, is being done by an opposition that has got interest in the political interest in this country. Unfortunately, because at the end of the day, look at it, Gerald. I mean, Kenyans should now be happy. According to Daniel, we've not actually gotten to that point where Kenyans, we feel the need of having our voice heard. But don't you think that because of the memoranda which was presented during that committee sitting, in fact the committee had to extend by I think 2 or 3 days, because the overwhelming kind of memoranda they were receiving from different entities, organizations, civil societies, etc., was just overwhelming. And now they have just completed their report and coming back to Parliament this week. But what do you read the mind of the common mwananchi? Have they correctly put themselves in that space where at this particular point they say we are in 2023. The constitution is very clear, as they correctly say. The constitution is very clear. But are we as a nation, the people of this country, being in our rightful place as per the constitution?
Thank you for that interesting question. Abraham Lincoln defined democracy as the rule of the people, by the people and for the people. Now the question is Kenya a democratic state? If you ask that question, I remember Kofi Annan once said that a healthy democratic society must be built on 3 pillars. Number 1, peace and development. Number 2, sustainable peace and security. Number 2, sustainable development. And number 3, rule of law and respect for human rights. All these 3 pillars, they don't have a foundation in Kenya. They're very shaky. Now, is Kenya a mature democracy? This is a very important question because what are the dimensions of democracy? How are we understanding, we as a nation, how are we understanding democracy? What is the role of the common mwananchi in a democracy? Because as I raised the issue earlier, we are a closed political system. We are not an open political system. So we are still trying to grapple with the challenges of democracy, trying to embrace democratic ideals, and the Freedom House categorized us as a partial democratic state. We are still in transition. And coming back to your question, are the views of the common mwananchi fully expressed, and does the common mwananchi in Kenya understand his full responsibility as a citizen and his entitlement as enshrined especially in Article 1 of the Kenyan Constitution, sovereignty of the people? Unfortunately, I'll say no.
But I have to give it to Kenyans. Let me just give it to Kenyans, because if you hear the Finance Committee chair saying that they've made some recommendations for the amendments to be made in the bill, then it means that Kenya's voice has been heard.
Who are these Kenya? I don't know. What is your definition of this?
We had got different entities going for the public participation. That is a voice heard already.
I'm not fully convinced. I'm not absolutely convinced.
Okay.
But you see, that's what I said, and I agree with Gerald to some extent. I say that, you see, there is a public participation, then there is a meaningful public participation that you can track, you can trace, and be accountable for. This, what we saw, is fiscal money, public participation that was going on, views, channel here and there for consideration. But you see, again, our laws are very silent on how would we trace the feedback from public participation. Okay? Because what we have been doing in the counties, including the county assembly, every counties have got public participation. But it's done for tokenism. It is done in a sense that when you present your petition, how do you get the feedback that you had?
Absolutely.
It is in the mercy of those that are receiving memorandum. You will never know, but what you do is to make a public appearance. So they would stamp authority that we did a public participation, and Victor and colleagues presented a memorandum, and you are not able to trace. That is the situation we are in. And that is the quagmire we're in with the committee in Naivasha. And I will tell you what probably might happen. There is a sense in which they will discuss some of the amendments, of course, because citizens have channeled their frustrations about them. On the VAT, I foresee a situation where they would reduce the tax from 16 maybe to 8 or something. They would do that. Because, like I told you, it would be very foolish for them to proceed when Kenyans have given an opinion that is otherwise. I see a situation that have hinted towards reducing the taxes that are levied on digital monetization tax, because artists paraded in State House and channeled their frustrations. You understand? There could be consideration on that. On housing levy fund, of course, I don't see a situation where they would change it, but I see a situation where they would clarify what is, what is the management of these funds, because that is where Kenyans have got different opinions. And they would open a channel where they would talk to, the employers, because there is also a frustration with the employers. And the situation where employees or employers are now like cited, they're incited one against one another, probably could be. Because not so many employers would want to ask, why am I releasing 3%? Of your taxes. If at all also your payee is also already being taxed. So I think so, that situation where there would be consideration. And hence what I'm talking about is, would consideration still be appealing to Kenyans? That is the question. That is the question. Would we have a win-win situation where Kenyans would understand, okay, the country must be run with levying of taxes, and it's a deal. Okay.
That's a good question, because even as you speak, we still don't know which clauses are going to be amended. So it's still a top secret until it's tabled before.
I just made my prediction. I'm willing to come back on Monday here, and you'd see probably those are the considerations.
What will happen?
Yes, yeah.
But Gerald, when you look at the entire framework, the executive is under pressure. I mean, the budget has to be read. Parliament has a key role. The Common Mwananchi has done its part, and now it goes back to Parliament. So we are in a situation where we have got white and black. The Common Mwananchi is waiting for his member of Parliament or for her member of Parliament say that, this bill is going to affect me as a Common Mwananchi. But 2027 is coming. And Kenyans never forget so easily. One thing dents the entire system, but some of them do forget. Number two, the executive must get their budget read. So between a rock and a hard place, what is going to happen in this situation? Do you think the government, what is now a place of win-win, as Daniel would put it, that the government, the executive has, gotten his way, Parliament has also gotten its way, and the Common Mwananchi is also going to be fed on some fair ground?
I think the presentations which were made for changes in that finance bill, I don't know to the extent how many clauses have been changed. I'm not sure. Maybe if it's made public, then we can understand. So that will also define the course. Number two, based on this contrast, whether on the parliamentarians, whether to vote on the bill or rather to consider the Common Mwananchi or to follow the executive orders, quote unquote, from the president and this administration. I think that as I've made it clear, they will, the parliamentarians, especially the UDA parliamentarians, they will unanimously vote for that bill to pass. I believe so, because number one, you remember, if you look at the nature of our political parties, these political parties, they're those people who command how voting is done. So it's not about whether you as an honorable, as an MP, you're going to decide whether you're going, what your members told you. It's about you're going to vote on what the party has told you to vote. So it's something that's also very difficult for both the MPs and also difficult on the side of Kenyans, you know, on what to expect.
Yeah. But that has happened before.
Exactly.
We had different budgets.
Exactly. And leave alone even the budget. I was just saying, the question we are talking about public participation.
Yeah.
If we were having a functional democracy in this country where citizens have realized their power, then it could be ideal that members of parliament would have voted in favor of what the citizens want. But that is not the same. Why? Because, Victor, there are citizens of this republic in certain areas in this country that have voted their leaders who swindled public money in corruption cases. Okay? In fact, when they were asked why they were going to do that, they said, this is our thief.
Yeah.
You understand? You know these cases. Okay? We're having public servants who had got question records are now holding positions. And this is why I'm saying, if we were as a country that are cognizant of the decisions that we make in the ballot that ultimately give us leaders, then we wouldn't have voted these leaders. But bringing back to what you're asking, would voting yes for this bill make a difference in your constituency? No. No.
Nationally, yes.
Not with the current electorals that we have.
Yes. Nationally, yes.
Nationally, yes. But let me tell you, there are sections in these constituencies where people would vote yes and would not make a difference. Because the political ethnic mobilizations and politicization of how we do our things, people would forget that you voted for this no or yes. Even as much as as me would want to say, these members of parliament who voted for yes are the enemies of people. But citizens would forget that. In fact, they would become their best members of parliament. So one of the things I'm saying that we would not, a state of citizenry on our mind are still not yet matured and think that if my member of parliament voted yes, then coming elections I would not elect that member of parliament because on such a day, he voted for yes for this bill. We haven't yet matured to that level. If we would have, then these members of parliament would have shut down this bill and returned it back with amendments. But that's not the case. That is not the case.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, budget has to be read.
It has to be.
But to whose advantage? Now this is a situation... the opposition have been calling for a complete flop to the bill, but it can't in its entirety. It cannot happen. Because either way, even if the opposition was in government, to take charge at this particular point, a budget had to be read. So that was given. It has to happen either way. But we are in a situation where the opposition is now saying, you know what, this thing has to flop. The opposition has whipped their members, the government also, President William Ruto also whipped members of Kenya Kwanza, which is okay. I mean, you have to put your house in order. But a situation where we have got opposition calling for a complete flop of this bill, with numerical strength in the House, will they achieve it? I don't know. Gerald?
I'm not sure about that.
Do you think the president is comfortable wherever he is?
I think President Ruto is comfortable. As I've said, President Ruto is a very astute politician. That guy is very strategic. So to think about that, President Ruto will lose sleep because of Raila Odinga, I think it's not possible. Yeah, he already knows how to curb Raila Odinga. So even if Raila Odinga, no matter what he does, he's already 10 miles ahead of Raila Odinga.
Okay, generally, the opposition in the 13th Parliament.
In the Parliament, I think, the UDA have the majority. So if they unanimously agree to vote, then some of the, I feel like if the UDA, they get united, some of the ODM MPs, they might abstain.
We've had, even a couple of few days, we've had even some members of Parliament from Kenya Kwanza saying that, you know what, I'm not going to do this. Was it just public?
There are a few. There are
just a few.
Yeah, there are a few of them.
Don't you think that's enough to spoil the froth?
What I have seen and what has shocked me is, I saw a proposed list, I don't know whether it was factual or not, for so far the analysis that have been done, those who can pass will vote yes, those who will vote no, and those who will abstain. And you see the list of abstinence is long. You know, there are around 46 or something. That's a significant number of members of parliament. And you see they are from both sides. Surprisingly, they are from both sides. So this is what I keep mentioning. And you see, and let me correct you, Gerald. Yes, the president of the Republic of Kenya might not lose some sleep because of the opposition, but I think he loses sleep because of where the country is headed to. He should be as a leader. You know, politically, yes, maybe because, like you said, and as a political leader, probably is 10 miles ahead of maybe some miles ahead. But I think for him, he might be worried about the stake of passing out that bill, whether he passes it in or not. I think this is one thing that a head of state would reason out, and what would be the effects in the aftermath of voting yes or voting no. Because this is where you should be surveying on the aftermath and begin to prepare the outcome. But as we foresee, I see a situation where there are some members of parliament, and of course the accusations of people crossing the floor. Others who are in Kenya Kwanza abstaining or saying they will vote against the finance bill. Others in the opposition are saying they would vote yes or abstaining or still thinking of how to vote. So it is not guaranteed. But probably I see with the bravado, and the president already said that he want to see which member of parliament would want to vote against this bill. That definitely whips. It's a definitely direction to Kenya Kwanza, members of parliament, probably not to go against the president's desire.
Gentlemen, I'll give you 1 minute each for us to get to closing remarks because we're running out of time. Let me start with you, Gerald. House resumes tomorrow. They have their sitting tomorrow in the afternoon. What should you expect this coming week? In 1 minute, if you can, please.
Yeah, Archbishop Desmond Tutu once said that if an elephant had his foot on the tail of a rat and you're neutral, the rat won't appreciate your neutrality. So this issue is an issue that affects all of us, and I will just give my opinion as the common man who will also give almost the similar opinion. I think that on the contrary, I think MPs might disappoint Kenyans based on what they will do. But personally, I'm hoping, as many Kenyans are hoping, that they will vote to represent the voices of those people who elected them into power. And they should also look at the future of this country. Yeah, they should put that into perspective. Thank you.
All right. Very nice.
Well, it is my hope that the bill might be reconsidered further and further. Kenyans should wait and see the final, document that has been reviewed by the committee sitting in Naivasha. But Kenyans, I think, from what we can see and going by the political stage, I see this bill being passed because, give it that the government has got a majority on their side, and their interest is to pass this bill. So I think Kenyans, like I said, would prepare for the aftermath of the passage of this bill. One is to begin to still renegotiate with the government and still petition the government. There are avenues of still doing that. There are avenues of petitioning the government if they feel their taxes, they're being overtaxed unfairly. There are avenues. But as I conclude, Victor, allow me to also mention an issue that is pertinent to myself and to the country. There is a seasoned issue that is coming with banning of markets in this country. Okay?
Yeah.
That we should really touch on as this platform. Kikomba has been being banned each and every time. Toy market is being banned each and every time. So I really want to ask the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, because even as we are struggling with taxes and the mamambogas and the people who are struggling to sustain the economy and keep the small income and going, we have seen a situation where arsonists are beginning to ban properties of Kenyans and ban properties of local people who are trying to make a living. I think it's important that fires in Gikomba or in Toy Market or anywhere now should be an issue that should be concluded.
Yeah.
And let us stop this issue and let us know who are these arsonists who are organizing for Kenyans' property to be burned down each and every time.
When you had some of the traders saying that they've lost, the business in running into millions of shillings. There's a lady who said that she owns 3 stalls there and the total cost goes to around 1 million or 1 shilling. Recovering such kind
it's unfortunate.
of investment is a difficult thing to stand. All right, thank you so much for being a part of this show. Daniel Orogo, political analyst, and for the first time joining me on set is Gerald Minishi, who is a political analyst. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Somebody said that why were we all in black? There was a memo. It's not a Black Monday, just a coincidence, telepathy at work. Okay, you as a viewer, thank you so much for being a part of the show. Let's take a break. GMK continues with Ram Aguko. Good morning.